TEMA Talk is a BS-free zone with smart, funny and educational conversations with entrepreneurs and business owners sharing their stories and insights designed to help you succeed. The result is a video vault of wisdom, strategies and tactics on how to grow your business by increasing revenue, reducing costs and amplifying your market share. Welcome to TEMA Talk, the B2B show created to help entrepreneurs and CEOs succeed. Here is your host, business growth architect and founder of TEMA, Carl M. Gibbons.
Hi and welcome to another edition of TEMA Talk. Joining us today is Eric J. Gall. Eric is the registered broker and founder of Edison Business Advisors, which is a brokerage that focuses on small and mid-market businesses, that's just like you, and he provides buy, sell, valuations and exit strategies. Over the last 20 years, Eric has participated in many forms of business transactions, including mergers, acquisitions, divestitures, spinouts, roll-ups, totaling well over 200 million. That's made him a go-to guy. In fact, he's such a go-to guy that the International Business Brokers Association have now recognized and named him as one of the top 10 brokers in the state of Florida. So Eric, welcome to TEMA Talk.
Well, thank you, Carl, and I appreciate the introduction.
It's my pleasure. You can pay me later, as they say. All right. Okay, so let's get on with it. Let's get down to it. We've got a lot to talk about. We're living in different times. Some people say challenging times, I say exciting times. Give me your perspective as a business broker. What's been going on out there? Has everybody been pressing the panic button? Is everybody hunkering down? What are they doing?
Well, I mean, it depends who you talk to. I mean, I've spoken to brokers across the country over the past 3 or 4 months, and some of them, are kind of wallowing in, I guess, self-pity and struggling a bit, wondering where their income's coming from, and then others, are doing quite well. Myself, I've listened to tons of educational documentaries, and I've listened to tons of webinars put on by all the different business brokerage associations and M&A associations across the country. And everybody has a different take on it. Some of them are really focused in on, we've got to pivot. We've got to do things differently. We've got to be ultra sensitive to the business owner. I don't feel I ever really pivoted. I've just stayed true to the course of what I've always done. And it seems to have worked incredibly well for me. Business sales throughout history have always been fairly consistent. People, grow old and retire. They're ready to move on to that next stage of their life. And so there's been a steady stream of, businesses coming up for sale. Now, I won't say that people didn't stop, pause, and take a look at the marketplace and say, you know what, let's wait and see what, COVID's going to do. But you knew, over time that that's just going to create a buildup of, sellers that are going to come to market, probably sooner rather than later. And I've seen that in the last month. My phone's been ringing off the hook from people who were sitting and waiting and now are ready to sell.
Right. Because the whole baby boomer thing now, and that includes me, right? We're all approaching the either the sell time or the thinking about sell time, right? Do you think that the corona scenario, the pandemic, which of course has been global, nobody's been untouched by this. It's not just somebody's, the man's picking on Southwest Florida. I mean, the whole world has been affected by this. But do you think there are guys out there that have done like, hey, I'm in Florida. If it's not hurricanes, it's the rainy season. If it's not the rainy season, now it's COVID. I'm done. I'm out of here. I'm like, Eric, get rid of this for me. What can I do?
Well, certainly there are quite a few of them, I think, coming to the table right now looking to sell. Right. We've gone through all those other downturns, and as you mentioned, the hurricanes. And
I forgot 2008. Oh my God, yeah, right.
And a lot of people are just, at the point where, coming out of another recession or coming out of another disaster, you know, they don't want to do it. They're ready to move on, and you know, leave their, you know, that effort that's required, you know, to rebuild a business or bring it back to the level where, you know, it previously was. You know, they're ready to hand that off to someone else.
Right. And it's going to probably come as no surprise to anybody when I say I've got to imagine that the entertainment, the restaurant business, the hospitality industry must be really suffering badly at this moment. I mean, I can't imagine anybody want to take on a restaurant at the moment.
Oh, it definitely they're struggling. You know, and I do get calls from restaurant and bar owners. In fact, this morning I was working with one that I've worked with repeatedly in the past, actually. And he's ready to get out of the business. His business hasn't been open. It's a bar. Right. You know, so you're looking at a 2020 numbers that aren't, you know, almost non-existent, right?
Yeah.
So how do you value it? How does a buyer value it? How excited is the market about a bar listing right now, or even a restaurant listing? I mean, time will tell, but those businesses definitely will be probably a little bit tougher sales, you know, moving forward.
Right. I mean, I've got clients now that are taking if you like, the 180-degree approach and saying, look, if there's an opportunity, because people are finding it challenging, have just frankly just given up. Enough is enough, right? And won out. They're in a very hungry mode, but I have to tell you, they're in a very predatory mode. They're not walking around with a checkbook going, yeah, how much you want? Let's walk around. They're taking we're in a distressed mode scenario. So we're looking at distressed mode prices.
Oddly enough, no. You know, what I found out there, you know, recently is, you know, even during this pandemic, there has been no shortage of buy-side inquiries. You know, at least on my listings and you know, what I've been working on. The buyers have always been there. They've always been, you know, highly interested, highly motivated to purchase. And since the pandemic, you know, started, I mean, I've put, I think, 6-7 businesses into escrow already. You know, we're starting to close those right now. And some of them, you know, are in industries that are, you know, significantly affected by COVID, and others are in industries, you know, that have been enhanced by COVID. So it hasn't really affected, I think, what, you know, I would have, you know, anticipated or expected, you know, given the circumstances. And the pricing is 100% consistent with what was there, you know, prior.
Right. It's interesting you should say, a few minutes ago we were talking about clearly the hospitality industry has taken a knock, but you just said, and the businesses that have that COVID has been good and positive for those. Give us some examples of some sectors. I'm not asking you to disclose an individual business, but any particular sector.
Medical.
Right. So if I'm in the making masks business, I'm a rock star at the moment, right?
Yeah, you know, some of the businesses I have for sale are like ambulatory surgery centers, which were, you know, typically shut down. You know, you weren't allowed to do, you know, simple elective surgeries. You know, ton of interest. Medical billing, you know, medical procedures are still happening, billing's still happening, maybe not at the level it was because, you know, they emptied out the hospitals for COVID patients that may or may not have come, you know, depending on the area you live in. But, you know, those have done, you know, that business, I can't tell you I had well over 500 inquiries on that single business. So we've got a medical transport business for sale that we just listed about a month ago, and the inquiries are through the roof. So medical is very, very hot. Any type of B2B business, very, very hot. You know, there's no shortage of buyers for any type of service business in Southwest Florida. I mean, I've got a buyer that we put into escrow 2 pool service businesses. So, you know, in the last month. So, you know, it hasn't really slowed down. And, those types of businesses seem to be doing very, very well in the market, especially the ones that are making, what I call that kind of magical number of about 125,000 and up in seller discretionary earnings.
Right.
You're buying more than a job.
Right.
You're investing in something that's giving you a return.
Right.
Those businesses are, I'll say, a little bit more scarce right now, just because we haven't had a lot of new businesses come onto the market. So if you've got one listed for sale, there are no shortage of buyers.
Okay. So, I mean, that's good news. I mean, that is good news, and it must be good news for all our viewers, because let's face it, every time we turn on the TV or turn on the radio, it is all gloom and doom, right? It just is all gloom and doom. So to hear that there is some positive stuff coming out of this, that's good news. And I'm always a big believer in, it's just another opportunity. It's just the way you look at it. So yep. I want to go now, and I want to talk about the process, right? Because sure. You and I both know that there is a process. What's the number one mistake that the owner doesn't get when they pick up the phone to you? Hi, Eric, let's get this thing sold. And then the first question you ask is, and then they go, oh, didn't think about that.
Well, right, having good, sound, solid, understandable financial records that, when you convey that information to a buyer, it gives them, confidence and comfort that they know what they're buying as far as, history and cash flow of the business.
Right.
A lot of sellers, especially in the smaller businesses, love to run their personal expenses through the business. So.
Yep.
My recommendation is, if you're planning to sell, stop doing that for at least a year or two in advance. And if you can't, you better keep very clean, clear, crisp records of what you're running through the business, so you can prove it, to that buyer,
right.
when we do a due diligence situation.
Right. So you hit on a couple of numbers there. You said if we're thinking of starting to sell, we really need to start to put the exit strategy, the plan into place, sort of 18 months, 2 years before we actually we want to pull the trigger, right?
Correct.
Okay. And is there anything more than just the financials that need to be got in order? I mean, what else do they need to?
Well, definitely. I mean, that's probably the most important thing. I have a list of like 15 factors that I'll look at. I can dig much deeper than that. There's probably about 60 factors in the valuation process that you can look at. But there's like 15 that I look at. And, the big things are, do you have positive growth? Are you headed up in revenue, up in earnings, or are you headed down? If you're headed down, there's a risk to the buyer. What's the industry outlook? We spoke about, kind of essential versus non-essential businesses, restaurants, what's going to change in the future there, would impact, a sale and the sale price. We look at receivables turnover. If you get your cash quick, working capital becomes less of an issue. Those are popular businesses. If it takes you forever to get paid,
you've got 120 day plus accounts receivable, not good, right?
Yeah, you've got capital that's just sitting out there, invested in your business that is getting no return.
Right.
So, do you have a business plan in place? I hear from sellers all the time, well, my business has so much potential. If I do this or I do that, it can earn so much more money, so it's more valuable. So I'm expecting, 20% growth year over year. It's like, well, you've never grown more than, 3 to 5%, in the past 10 years. So why haven't you enacted all these plans, and captured that, value? Why are you leaving it up to someone else and then to do all the work and then expecting them to pay you for the work that you should have been doing, in the past? So, I can go through a whole bunch more if you want. But
right, sure. What about expectations? I've had this discussion with clients on many a time. when we've been talking exit strategies, we've been talking about business valuations, and they come up with numbers like, we've been working together for 2, maybe 3. Where did you get that number from? I mean, where? Just like, it's almost like they just went, oh, that sounds like a good number. I'll go with that. And then, of course, then you get the famous, I've been working on this for 37 years, man and boy. I took it from something in my garage and now we've got this plant and I employ 100 people. Well, all that's great, but like, it kind of sort of don't count, right?
Oh, congratulations. Well, your business is worth what it's worth, compared to other businesses, right?
Yeah.
Buyers have options.
Yeah.
They don't have to buy your business. And,
Right.
Your 37-year-old business, that, makes, makes you $150,000 a year, in Naples, Florida, isn't worth any more than, a 5-year-old business, that makes $150,000 a year in Fargo, North Dakota.
Right.
It's warmer down here, so you probably get more interest in it.
Yeah.
But, valuations are valuations, and buyers, tend to pay based on, historical multiples of revenue and historical multiples of what we call owner benefit or seller discretionary earnings.
Right. And so when we're looking to buy a car, we can go online and I can look at the valuation of a car. I can plug in how many miles mine's got on and all the nicks and the scratches and all that kind of stuff. And I can get an evaluation sort of, it's going to be in the region of between this and between that. Is there anywhere where business owners, even if they're just sort of tinkering with the idea and daydreaming about it, can sort of say, well, what's a rule of thumb here? What am I looking at? What can I expect here?
There are rules of thumb that are printed and available, and I get buyers and sellers pushing them on me all the time, and frankly, I don't think they hold a lot of water. I think what is important in a valuation standpoint, is really 3 things. One is, can the business pay you a fair salary for the time and effort that you have to put into running the business?
Is the juice worth the squeeze?
Exactly. Second thing is, does the business beyond that, provide you, cash flow for return on investment, that you have to outlay to purchase the business. And that return on investment has to be, commensurate with the risk. So if you have a very risky business, you would expect a higher return on investment. And the other thing is, if you have to leverage, that business to make the purchase, will it pay the debt service? So those 3 things I think are critical in, looking at any business and how much you're willing to pay for it. And kind of the general rules of thumb that I use there, because I think that's where I apply rules of thumb, are, on a cash purchase, I look for a return on investment, usually around 33% or better, right? And that's after you take out your salary.
Yep.
And on a leverage business, so if you go to an SBA lender, I'm looking for roughly a 60% or better return on investment. Now that initial investment's much smaller because you're putting about 20% down on a business. So you're expecting a higher return, because when you leverage with, say, an SBA loan, they're going to lien, your personal property. So much higher risk associated with a loan, with an SBA loan to purchase a business than if you were to pay cash. Therefore, the much higher expected return, on that initial investment.
Right. Funding. You've just touched on funding. Now, currently, we have an environment in which I've been saying for the last couple of months, the closest thing we're ever going to get to free money. I mean, it's just, it is, 3% and less interest. I mean, it costs any lender more than that to just administrate it, send you the envelope out with a stamp on it that tells you what your interest's got to be. That's going to cost them more than 3%. So there's a lot of money out there at the moment. What are, if anybody's thinking about buying a business, what options do they have? Where can they go to seek funding? Because it's all, I've always been a big believer I'd rather leverage somebody else's dollar than my own, right?
Well, I mentioned the SBA, Small Business Administration. They have what's called the 7A loan program. And the 7A loan program has been around for a long time. And I've used it extensively, especially on, the larger purchases. I'd say purchases at, $500,000 and up. And it's been a phenomenal program that we have in the United States, to help buyers, purchase a business. There are no shortage of SBA lenders, and right now, when you talk about free money, if you close a deal before September 27th, they're offering 6 months of payments, which is on a 10-year note, 10-year 7A note, 6 months payment is a 5% discount. When you take that into consideration of what you're paying, I mean, that's negative interest, right?
Right. Yeah.
It's unprecedented, that kind of offer. So we've had, quite a few buyers, taking advantage of that right now. We've certainly pushed, that offering out, to our Buyside clients. And, it's been a little bit of a boon for us lately. We're happy to take advantage of that. But even afterward, you can't close by September 27th. Those interest rates are, like you said, unprecedented. There's ample money in the 7A program right now to do a deal. There is some concern that it may not be there forever.
Right.
There may be a little bit of a squeeze next year just because of how much money they've outlaid this year. But right now, I haven't seen a better time, to buy a business. And let me touch on something else about buying a business right now. The best times in history have been to purchase a business coming out of a recession, right? Because when a business is down, maybe it's a non-essential business, its revenues are lower, can you price gouge? Probably not at the moment, because everybody knows it's a special cause variation. It's not, something that's going to, extend on forever.
Right.
But it's a situation where you may be able to, as a buyer, say, hey, there's extra risk here, so my price should go down a little bit. And it is a negotiating tool, and it can be used to probably get a better deal. And as we come out of this, the revenue numbers are likely to go up.
Right.
The earnings are likely to go up. So history says now is a good time to buy.
Right. So Eric, walk us through the process. So how does it work from, I've now decided it's time for Carl to sell, right? I pick up the phone, call Eric. What happens now? What's the process?
Well, we have a 9-step process for selling a business, and I'll try to walk through it quickly. But, the first step is a business review. So we would need your financial information, list of assets, leases, other pertinent information, and characteristics of the business. And we'll take that and we'll try to what we call recast the financial statements in order to get a true picture of what the business will return to the buyer, right? And then we talked about those multiples of seller discretionary earnings, multiples of revenue. We also take a look at 3 accounting methods and what we call a build-up method, to put a value on the business. And once we have that value done, that is sent back to the buyer or seller, I'm sorry. And, if we get an agreement, on that value, we move to a listing agreement or engagement agreement. And then how, I guess there's different terminology used, depending on the size of the business. And, that agreement, once it's signed, we work with the seller to prepare marketing documentation. The most important or critical element of that is called a confidential business review. That And then we, develop ads. We put those ads out to market and advertise the business. We do all kinds of additional marketing efforts as well, which I'll call more active marketing versus passive marketing. Passive marketing to me is just, putting ads out and waiting for the phone to ring, for the emails to come in. Active marketing, based on what, we agree with the seller, can be, direct contact to like-kind industries or adjacent industries. We actively promote, the businesses to our past buyers, past sellers. We are active on social media to get the word out that this type of business is for sale. But all that's done, most importantly, confidentially. So we do what we absolutely must do to try to keep, those ads from disclosing who the business, is. So to protect that business seller, from, competitors.
I understand. Yeah.
Competitors, et cetera, right? Yep.
So then presumably the phone starts to ring, or the emails start to come in. Eric, I've got your notice about such and such. What happens now? Because now I'm a buyer. Now I'm interested.
Yeah, we force all the buyers to sign what's called a non-disclosure agreement. In other words, once they get information on the business, they're not allowed to share it with anyone else without, my permission and the seller's permission. A lot of sellers, ask me to clear the buyer through them in case it's a competitor or one of their employees or some other person that they know of, that, could harm the business if they knew it was for sale. So a lot of times, we'll share the name, I'll get clearance from the seller, and then we send them the confidential business review. We send them, the financial history of the business. They take a look at it, they like it, or they don't.
That's when the dance begins, right? That's when we start the dance, right?
Yeah. And if they like it, we generally get into, some discussion, they get into discussion with me. I'll answer the questions I can answer, the questions I can't answer. We'll get into a discussion with the seller. If they determine that it's a business they want to purchase, we help the buyer with the, putting together the purchase agreement. We help buyer and seller walk through due diligence, help the buyer get financing, if they need it. And then all the other little things that need to get done, to transition a business, prior to the closing date, we help with that as well. And then obviously in Florida, we're real big on third-party closing attorneys, which is a neutral attorney to help do the deal, efficiently and effectively. And that's worked really well for us down here.
Right.
So the final step is really to get to the closing table, where everybody smiles, happy, and, excited about their future, whether they're retiring, as a seller might do, or, starting out their new career as a business owner.
Right. Now, I know there's no such thing as the norm, because every business is different. It doesn't matter how big or how small it is. But what's a reasonable expectation for this process? 3 months, 6 months from me saying, Eric, sell it, to the guy signing along the dotted line and giving everybody a check? What are we talking about here?
Well, for sellers, it's always unreasonable because they want to sell immediately.
Right, I get that. It's a bit like your house, right? You know, as soon as the realtor says you can sell it, well, let's sell it, right?
Yeah, and I mean, it's so hard to predict. I mean, I've had businesses that, I thought would be very, very difficult sales, and they've sold, in 4 to 6 weeks, which shocked me. And then I've had deals which I thought would be very quick sells, and because of circumstances beyond my control and the seller's control, one I can recall took 4 years.
Right.
Mostly because of government interference and regulation changes that impacted it and delayed things. But on average, it's 9 to 12 months, for a business sale, for a small business sale.
Right. So the business owner needs to have his expectations set. This is a 12-month process. If you come in any earlier, great, but 12 months is a good, as we said earlier, rule of thumb,
Yeah, and I would say for the smaller businesses, that's correct. For a larger business, something I'd say over 500,000 in EBITDA or seller discretionary earnings, those usually are 1 to 2 years.
Okay. All right. Great stuff. Eric, whether you know or you don't know, we always like to have a bit of fun at the end of TEMA Talk. And we like to ask our guests, I've got Mr. Gibbons' magic 35 questions. I'm just going to pick some randomly. We're going to have a bit of fun and let's get to know Eric a little bit better. Best piece of business advice you've ever been given? Best piece of business advice you've ever been given?
Well, the best piece of business advice I was ever given was by a gentleman I worked for in Ford Motor Company. And he said, buyers are motivated by 3 things: cheaper, better, or different. You don't want to be cheaper. So you better focus on being better and being different.
Right.
And, I've tried to do that, with Edison Business Advisors. And I think I've found a pretty good mix of both.
Good for you. All business owners and entrepreneurs have that moment of self-doubt or the imposter syndrome. The little guy that sits up here and goes, Eric, you don't want to be doing that. Eric, you shouldn't be doing that. How does Eric work through that?
You set goals and, you strive for them, right? So, there's always days when you wake up and you go, oh my God, what am I going to do to get to that goal or that objective? And sometimes you just need to, step back, step away, rethink, the process, the methods, the tools, or whatever it you're using to get you there and, adapt. And, situations like today's with the pandemic, I've had to do a little bit of that. But I'll tell you what, it's almost every day you have to do it. There's always change.
Who is what living person do you most admire?
I'd have to say my father. He was a baseball coach and a very good one. And, I was brought up, in an environment where team was considered paramount. My family was a team. My friends were a team. And working together and, listening to one another and, trying to, when you set those goals, work towards them as a team has been a, important part of my life.
All right. Okay. Last 2, what profession other than being one of the country's leading business brokers, if you weren't that, what would you like to try? What would you like to be?
Well, one of the things that people may or may not realize is I'm a major baseball fan. With my dad being a baseball coach, I came with the territory. So one of the things I like to do, and one of the reasons I'm in Southwest Florida, is adult baseball. I'm 56 years old, and I play quite a bit of baseball, and so getting paid for that would be great, as opposed to having to pay. So if I could go back and change anything, boy, that would be a dream.
Well, who knows? There might be some teams coming up for sale fairly soon, right? If things carry on the way they're going, there's nobody in the stadiums. All right. If this program could connect you with any person, prince, potentate, pauper, prime minister, it doesn't matter. If there's one person that you want to be watching this program and you want that person to turn around and say, get me this Eric Gall on the phone now, I need to talk to him, who's it going to be?
Well, for me, it's all about, small business owners. I come, 2 generations back in my family, and further, we're all business owners. They convinced my parents that they needed to go to school, and go out and get employment. But so my parents were not business owners, but, that the entrepreneur is someone who's, has always excited me. I spent quite a few years in corporate America, and since I made the switch, into entrepreneurship, reconnecting, with that past in my family history, bar owners, restaurant owners, commercial fishermen.
So if you're an entrepreneur and you want to have a chat with Eric, give him a call. So if they want to give you a call, or they want to get hold of you, or they want to even thinking about selling their business, how do they do that? How do people get hold of you, Eric?
Well, they can call me. My direct line is 239-738-6227. And email, if you're shy, is Eric, E-R-I-C, at Edison, E-D-I-S-O-N, B for business, A for advisors.com.
Okay, excellent stuff. Eric, thanks for your time. I know you're busy. We really appreciate it. That's it, everybody. Another 30 minutes of business banter and badinage has just flown by. Once again, thanks to Eric Gall from Edison Business Advisors for being our guest today. I want to thank the team at Guerilla Media for making this happen. They push all the buttons and the knobs, and I have no idea how it works, right? I want to thank you guys for watching and listening, and don't forget to visit TEMA's Video Vault of Wisdom at thirdeyemanagement.com, where we share all the other TEMA talks and all the other episodes, and they're packed full of strategies and tactics on how you can grow your business. So until the next time we meet, I want you to stay safe, stay in touch, but most importantly, stay profitable. All right, guys, we are out.